Hello and welcome to More Than a Game, a podcast about the A-Leagues, Premier League and more. This week on More Than a Game, City to host MasterChef A-League as they make a meal out of winning the Premier League plate. Pep Burnt's dinner just as about to be served at the Bernabeu midweek. Klopp's sour grapes don't quite hit the mark against Spurs. And the processed pork derby, West Ham versus Frankfurt, doesn't go as well as Moyes had hoped. My name's Tommie C. Joining me this week on the pod is Damo. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. I really appreciate the effort that went into that rhyming intro this week. Very good stuff.
Right, there's a theme too, the food theme. I thought, in fact, there's even some food related questions as well from one particular listener, which kind of inspired me, in fact, for the intro. So when you'll see it when you when I read it out, you'll know which one it is. But mate, shall we crack on, because we've got a lot to cover this week. It's been a bumper week in both the A-League and the Premier League, so we'll. Let's get straight into it. What was your moment of the week this week?
Look, I can't go past the championship final day, seeing Sheffield United put 4 past the champions to secure their spot in the playoff finals, the playoffs rather. So Sheffield United will be in a semi-final against everyone's favorite Nottingham Forest. So be up against it. A lot of people want to see Forest back in the Prem, but not me at the expense of Sheffield United.
Look, every time the championship playoffs come around, I hope that there's a team that hasn't been in there for a while comes up, or there's a team that just hasn't been in the Premier League for a long time comes up. So in this time around, I'm sort of looking at Nottingham Forest, obviously back-to-back European Cup winner in the 80s, and Luton. They're my two favourites, and I wouldn't be surprised if both of them lose in the first round of the in the championship playoff semis, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. As it turns out, so at Luton, they're playing Huddersfield, of course, of Aaron Moy fame from the last few years. They play on Saturday morning, Australian Eastern Time, and then Sheffield United play Nottingham Forest as advertised. That one's on Saturday night. I think it's midnight kickoff, I think, Australian time on Saturday. So I'm sure everyone will be tuning in for that after they've watched Eurovision for the night. So yes. For me this week, look, I had initially I thought, oh geez, what am I going to pick? And then the more I dug, I just couldn't stop finding cracking moments of the week. So I'll just rattle off a few. The fact that we've got an Australian in the Europa League final, I think is great. Aiden Hrustic obviously made the Europa League final with Frankfurt. Get onto that a little bit later in terms of the match between West Ham and Frankfurt. Sam Kerr won her 3rd straight Women's Super League title with Chelsea this week. Also won the Golden Boot as well, which is great. Obviously, we're just so used to Sammy just kicking ass, but it's good to stop and sort of remind ourselves just how awesome she is, not just for the Tillies, but even just in a broader sense that she's fucking amazing. And finally, this is maybe a little bit more divisive, and that was, everyone probably remembers A-League Star Wars round from about sort of 3 years ago. I think it might have been the most recent season before COVID. And there was, I think it was some sort of promo for the final Star Wars movie of the latest, the latest trilogy, and it pretty much got widely panned, right? But I think it's confirmed now that Star Wars round is okay, because La Liga had Star Wars round this week. In the Madrid derby, they had Darth Vader out there and the like, promoting the new Star Wars series starring Obi-Wan Kenobi. So bring back Star Wars round. I think all the Euro snobs would be right around it.
It's peak La Liga, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. All right, mate. Have you got an own goal this week?
Yeah, look, my own goal was, I'm sure we'll talk about the game a little bit more in depth later, but off the back of the Liverpool Tottenham game, that obviously looks like it may cost Liverpool any sort of chance at winning the league unless the unimaginable happens. But my own goal was actually Jurgen Klopp's comments after the game, talking about how he hates this type of football that Spurs played. And yes, they got the result they wanted, but I would never play this type of football. It's very negative football. I mean, let's not forget that Jurgen Klopp, shithoused his way to a Champions League semi-final and final with Dortmund playing that exact football. Let's also not forget that Jurgen Klopp won a Champions League final against Tottenham playing that exact football. It's a little bit sour grapes from Klopp, and of course he's frustrated that his team's all but out of the league title race. But yeah, I just thought it was not his finest moment in the media, where he's usually very good and very honest, but that wasn't really great comments.
Mate, if there's one thing we know about sour grapes is that they always lead to a bad wine.
And I think on the back of it, the Pep and Klopp bromance is a bit over after Pep made some less than favorable comments about Jurgen Klopp during the week as well. So,
mate, that whole thing is just that whole bromance thing is just the most contrived bullshit I've ever seen. Like, they don't like each other; they're just playing it up for the cameras and sort of keeping things civil. And I don't know, it's just annoys me. That alone almost could have been my own goal, probably 3 weeks running.
Yeah.
Mate, I sort of struggled for an own goal this week. So I'm kind of going to, for me, my own goal would have been the championship final round, because I actually found it hugely anticlimactic, because obviously I wanted something to happen, but the fact that Sheffield United were up 3-0 within 25 minutes was like, well, this is
and
all
Borough
over.
were down 2-0 within 30 minutes. It was all over.
Exactly. So it was very, very anticlimactic.
And the relegation battle was already finished before the round had started. There was 5 points difference, so there was no chance in that changing.
So we'll have a little bit of a quiz then in its place. So I mentioned before about Aiden Rustic. He's made a Europa League final. 3 Australians have played in Europa League or UEFA Cup finals before. Who do you think they might be?
Chippers? 2, I think, at Basel? No.
2,
oh, wow.
2 of them are maybe, I think they're a little obvious, but I think the third one's harder. So they're both there were 2 in the 2000s in the same game, and then there
was it Fulham, and who was in his team?
It was actually a Borough. So it was
for
2006. Yep. So 2006. Borough played Sevilla in the 2006. I'm not sure I think it was still UEFA Cup at that point, and then the other one was in the 90s. So it's a little bit harder.
Oof. Yeah, I wouldn't know that.
So 1993, Ned Zelic, he actually started as well
of course, I did know that.
Dortmund. Started for Dortmund in the UEFA Cup final against Juventus, which I didn't even know that Dortmund had played Juventus in a UEFA Cup final. Not only that, a little bit of UEFA Cup trivia here, but it was a 2-legged final as well, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know they actually did that. So everyone's learning a little bit about European finals tonight.
Except West
Ham. Let's crack. Yeah, I know, right? Let's move on before I start thinking too much about West Ham's performance, though. A little bit of news and some listener questions as well. First up, A-League All-Stars voting was announced this week. The concept was 5 players from each team were nominated as part of an All-Stars voting shortlist. The shortlist then consisted of a mix of foreign and Australian players with a mix of experienced and young players. Mate, did you like the voting concept? Have you liked how this has slowly panned out?
I think it's great. Fans are able to vote for whoever they think are the best players, whoever they think they want to see play, or they vote for every player in their team that they, or something like that. But obviously,
but they can only vote for 5.
Obviously, the fan vote isn't the be all and end all of the A-League All-Stars team. It will be a factor in picking, but at the end of the day, these aren't public results, and it's not most selections get picked in the team. Whether it has any input to whoever's picking the A-League All-Stars or not, we don't know. But it's just a good little bit of promo, and people are able to share their squads on social media and start some conversation about it. And I think it's a good thing, all in all.
Here. Jacob01 Oz asks, what did you make of them including grand final bound players in the All-Star shortlist?
I mean, it's a bit presumptuous to assume that any team is grand final bound. So you can't exclude all players from the 6 teams in the finals. So you have to include them all. And like we said, this isn't a finalized voting count. And even if people are selected and they choose not to play, then they don't play. But they have to be there to be voted, or else everyone's going to complain that, hey, how come I can't pick Jamie McLaren in my team? How come I can't pick Josh Brillante in my team? How come I can't pick Cumdog in my team? You know?
I think that's a great point. That like one of the best things about the A-League is that realistically, any of the 6 teams in the finals could really make the grand final. We've seen Melbourne City's form has tailed off, so I don't think they're even sort of. It's actually probably one of the more balanced final series of the last couple of years. So I really think that the only way, or the only alternative, might have been was just to not include any of the teams from the who are playing in the finals, but that it cuts out sort of the best half of the competition,
players, yeah.
right? So it probably is a little bit counterintuitive. So I think they've done the right thing. And look, the week of once the grand finalists are known, then they can crack on and sort of make their selections from there. So right call, I think. Mate, who was the first? Use your words. Who was the first player in your All Stars team?
It was Craig Goodwin, the future Johnny Warren medalist, my boy. Oh. He was the first player on my team sheet and the first player on many people's team sheet, I would imagine.
Probably. For me, it was the Cumdog because, I mean, he's just box office.
He's pure entertainment rather than quality.
Oh, mate, look, on the pitch, off the pitch, he's everything. He's everything you could hope for. And seeing him and Dwight York hook up, I think would be just magic as well. Speaking of magic, Bobo, he announced his retirement this week, not just from the A-League, but just from football in general. Scored 59 A-League goals, equal with Andy Keogh in 10th place overall in A-League history. He scored 71 goals in 118 appearances in all competitions for Sydney FC across 2 stints, and still holds to this day the record for most goals in a season with 27 in the 2017-18 season. Where does he fit for you in the conversation for the best A-League import? Is he up there with the Ninkovic, Broish's, Castro's sort of tier?
I don't think he can be considered in the top tier. You know, there's probably 3-4 players in that top tier of A-League imports, and I feel like although he had great success in winning a lot of trophies and scoring a lot of goals, I feel like the longevity and just the sort of the cultural influence at the club he didn't have in comparatively to a couple of the others that are in there. But I mean, no disrespect to his career at Sydney. It was phenomenal, incredible goal scorer in the A-League. But, you know, I think he'll most be remembered for that comment on Facebook where he pretended to be someone else. Do you remember that?
I remember that. No,
he called someone a white dog or something.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different one where someone got in an argument with him, and because like on Facebook he doesn't go by Bobo, like he goes by his actual Brazilian name, his Brazilian name, right? And someone was like arguing with him about Bobo, and he's like, "This guy's like, what are you talking about?" Like
he said, like record A-League goal scorer, you white dog, or something like that.
Oh, jeez. But look, I think upon reflection, I think he probably should be up there in that sort of Ninkovic, Broish, Castro conversation, because he was always a little bit underrated, I felt, because yes, he was just a bit of a pure goal scorer, but he was hardly sort of in the Jamie McLaren mold of just being a bit of a fox in the box. He was incredibly talented despite not being one of the quickest players, and obviously just very experienced, and played in one of the best, the all-time best A-League teams as well. So I don't know. I think maybe in a few years' time, maybe we'll look upon his role in the A-League through a different lens. But anyway. Moving on though, this weekend, I don't think it was really official, but at least in the F3 derby between Newcastle and the Mariners, there was bring a mate along sort of week. That was their theme, and so you could basically sign up as many mates as you wanted and bring them along. And I think the person who brought along the most mates got access to a corporate box, which is just like, that's great, right? Like, first of all your mates can come for free, and then secondly, they're going to get a corporate box, which
Yeah, that's
is a
very
great
good.
idea. And as it turned out, they ended up getting more fans to the F3 Derby than to the Big Blue between Sydney and Melbourne Victory, which a great result. Already, we've seen a couple of great derbies between the Mariners and the Jets this season. So, just another kind of another really positive fan initiative this year, which I liked. And we can't necessarily say that we've seen a lot of like great fan initiatives from the A League in the last couple of years. So that's one I think that is sort of like, there's nothing cheesy about it. It's just get as many of your mates as along, and hopefully some of them are going to be converted to full-time fans, I guess.
That's all we can hope for.
At Wurzel of Oz asks, spoons or plates, which one could you live without?
Oh, it's a tough one. Probably spoons, because you've also got forks.
What are you going to eat soup out of? Just out of your pots, or
out of your hand, mate? You can make a spoon out of your hand. That's how we originally did it.
I guess you could use a ladle
or you
and
could
just like
pour it into your mouth.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I like that. Even though it has, I mean, we're taking it in the literal sense. I think you might mean as in like wooden spoons or Premier's plates, but.
Pogba to City has sort of fired up this week. Some rumours of that. I think it was sort of framed in terms of City have turned down the chance to sign Pogba, which sounds like sort of a weird headline that an agent would write. But it's one that the more that I think about it, the more I'd like to see it. What about you?
Yeah, as soon as I saw this talk start, and the talk sounding like he's seriously considering it, they both come to the table. They're actually negotiating this. The more I read, the more I listened to it. Exactly the same as you, Tommy. The more I want to see it happen. I just want to see the reaction of Manchester United fans, and I want to see Pogba play brilliantly at Manchester City and just really rub it in the noses of the red side of the city.
What it also kind of reminds me of a little bit as well is Zlatan when he went to Barcelona under Pep. And we know that sometimes the likes of Pogba or Zlatan, they might sort of upset the dressing room a little bit. And generally speaking, you haven't heard a lot of sort of disgruntled players sort of making comment outside of the City dressing room. So I think Pogba going to City and sort of upsetting the apple cart a little bit, and maybe just disrupting the dressing room, would actually be sort of might bring City back into the pack a little bit as well. So that's something that I'd also like to see.
It's a double agent.
Yes,
Going there as a Manchester United fan just to bring City down from the inside.
Rafa Benitez Mark II. In contrast, though, it looks like Haaland is confirmed that he's agreed personal terms, and it looks like he's going to be going to Manchester City in the off season. How much do you not want to see this transfer happen?
I mean, it just makes it feels like the title race next year is almost already over if you look at it that way. But you know, on the back of Haaland seemingly confirmed with a Fabrizio Romano, here we go. We got rumors that Gabby Jesus might be off to Newcastle. Not happy that he's second fiddle now. It's a confirmed signing of a number 9, and he wants to be the main man, and I'm sure he would be at Newcastle. He'd start over Chris Wood.
Yeah, and I think Gabby Jesus has been in a bit of a difficult situation now for probably 2 years, where he's probably good enough to start for probably 3/4 of the league, and I think he was linked with Arsenal as well. But he's just probably shown that over the course of a full season, he's just probably not quite good enough for City's high standards. So I wouldn't be surprised, like you say, if he makes a move in the off season as well. Finally, one more listener question, and this one comes from Run Them Memes. He asks, what do you think of the new Doctor Strange Things movie?
Can't say I've seen it. Sounds pretty strange to me. Another great question from the listeners. Love it.
I don't know. I think Doctor Strange is like the new It's one of the new Marvel movies, isn't it? I don't know. I don't think I've seen a Marvel movie in about 5 years. So sorry, listeners. If you're tuning in for Marvel chat, you're probably on the wrong podcast.
Unfortunately.
All right, let's get into some A-League though. So the A-League was set up for an explosive final round with 3 teams in the running for the Premier's Plate this week. Melbourne Victory, they gave themselves every chance of taking out the prize by dismantling Sydney in a very one-sided Big Blue before the Woo erred, losing 2-1 to 4th place Adelaide. It all came down to City on Monday night as they hosted the Phoenix, knowing that only a win could secure them the title. It took just 2 minutes for City to take the lead, which they then doubled just a few minutes later, both from the same corner. Phoenix came back into the match, but ultimately City held on in the face of some terrific away support from the travelling Phoenix fans, some travelling from as far away as Sunbury. Damo, it was. I think it did sort of live up to the billing of being a really fun sort of final round with everything really sort of coming down to. Some people thought it was the last match, obviously forgetting about Sydney playing Brisbane tonight up in Brisbane, which I thought was kind of funny that people just forgot that the comp just kind of finished in a whimper on a Tuesday night, which is like a great
Great
analogy.
For the league.
Yeah, exactly. But look, how did you feel the sort of the weekend panned out in terms of, I guess, just sort of the weekend in general? I guess as an event with the final round.
Yeah, look, Victory pushed City all the way, which, if we looked at the league probably 6 weeks ago, we would have thought that was nearly impossible. It was going to come down to the final day. And I think we spoke about then saying, yeah, look, Victory, they've got all these games in hand, but I just don't think City will slip up. And it came down to, the final round. And, I just wish that these 3 games at least were on at the same time and that we could have the excitement of not knowing what result you've got to get, not being able to shut up shop, just having to go for it no matter what. And I think that creates just that extra element of, unpredictability and excitement. And, we've seen that Channel 10, Paramount Plus, they're not afraid to schedule fixtures at the same time. And, I wouldn't be adverse to, even if they don't play every single game in the final day at the same time, at least play the ones that matter at the same time. So we get a little bit of excitement from it.
Which is where I think if they're making decisions about sort of scheduling and trying to leave it up to the last minute, I think with our stadium availability in Australia, it makes it so difficult that really I think the only way of them doing that is to schedule that all the games are played at the same time on the final day. So I think it simplifies the organisation of it, and it might mean that you end up having all the games played at the same time, and it sort of kills off the audience a little bit, but obviously it's I think it's the only way forward to do it. Otherwise, you stick with what it's been for the last 15 years in the A-League. But look, this is where we would probably normally talk about our A-League anti-power rankings. But look, to be honest, it's probably a little bit pointless this week. I mean, we saw Melbourne Victory push City all the way. The Woo and City kind of limped into the finals. City losing midweek to Perth. And looking quite awful over in Perth, actually, which was pretty bizarre given that Perth had literally nothing to play for. But look, we are only just a couple of days away from finals, which is very exciting. I think there's a lot of people that are genuinely excited for this year's final series because it's a little bit slightly different format this year. We're going to have 2 elimination finals between 3rd and 6th and 4th and 5th. That's going to be Wellington versus Western United on Saturday, and then Adelaide versus Central Coast on Sunday. And then the winner of those 2 matches are going to play City and Victory on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the following Saturday and Sunday in 2-legged semi-finals, which again is sort of another new twist on the finals formula that we've had in Australia. So I mentioned before how sort of there's a bit of a mixture in terms of form heading into the finals this year, which does make that it's going to be a very even final series and one that really I think anyone at this point could take out. But first up, we're going to have Western United. They're going to play Wellington on Saturday at Amy Park in a one-off elimination final. Damo, what's your take on this one? You've got obviously the Woo, who aren't in great form, Wellington, who are in great form heading into the finals. Who do you think's going to win?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, Woo have been playing poorly. I mean, they haven't got a result for their last 3 games. They've had 2 losses in a draw in their last 3. But on the same hand, Wellington seemed to play brilliant one week, not so great the next, and brilliant again and not so great the next. So, I mean, I guess this all really depends on which Wellington side turns up. If the Knicks turn up firing, the Woo don't have a chance. But if the Knicks turn up not looking like the team we know they can look like, this could be an absolutely dire game, because I don't expect the Woo to deliver anything. So, I'm just hoping that Wellington can turn up ready to play, or else I think this is going to be a really kind of boring, fizzled out, probably extra time sort of game. And then it could go either way.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen this year that, I mean, generally speaking, the Woo have had some low scoring games, but I think it was only maybe 3 weeks ago that Wellington went to Ballarat and spanked the Woo 4-0. So it's really, really hard to know what we're going to see in this fixture. It could be low scoring and cagey being a final, or we could see both teams who have been in decent scoring touch in the last month. It just become a shootout. So it's going to be fascinating to see sort of how it pans out, because really it can go in any direction, I think, at this point. So,
Yep.
mate, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that Western United are going to win. I think they're going to win 2-1.
Wow. Yep. I mean, it's a good shout, and we've seen that they can play on the counter, and it's all determined on if we can stop the Knicks from scoring, because when the Knicks score, they score a lot. But if they don't score, they really kind of get bogged down, and like everything kind of falls apart. So yeah, it'll be a really interesting tactical battle, but I just really hope it's not the boring affair that I'm sort of predicting. It's the last thing I want to see for our first final of the year.
It's just a shame I'll be missing that one with Eurovision clashing at the same time. So
Eurovision will be much more exciting. But just charge the iPad up. We'll be ready to go both at once.
On Sunday, Adelaide will be playing Central Coast down in Adelaide in the other elimination final. This is the game that has the 2 form teams in the A-League, with both teams having won their last 5 games, which is pretty incredible that 4th and 5th are the 2 form teams in the league. But, I mean, this is the A-League, right? So, mate, I think this is going to be a really great game of football. You've got 2 teams who are no one really probably fancied either team. I think most people might have thought Adelaide were a decent chance to make the finals. I don't think many people would have predicted Central Coast to make the finals, though. I think this has all of the ingredients to be just a great game, attacking football. I think this is going to have goals for me, which normally means that it's going to be 0-0. But what's your take on this?
Yeah, same. I'm really looking forward to this game on Sunday afternoon. It's just going to be end to end football. There's going to be lots of goals. I hope we've got some of the most informed players in the league in Cumdog and Goodwin at either end. Both of them seem to be able to make anything out of nothing. And then you've got some of the most exciting young players in the league coming off the bench. You've got
Garen Qual.
Garen Kroll and Nestori Irankunda for Adelaide United as well. So, we've got a 16 and a 17-year-old that could come off the game and come off the bench and change a game. So, yeah, this game's got everything, and arguably not the greatest defenses in the league, which makes it better for goal scoring. So, yeah, this should be a brilliant game to watch.
Yeah, so this one's going to kick off. I think it's just after 4:00 on Sunday, which means that there's not many excuses for people not to catch this one. Especially they've got Mother's Day out of the way last Sunday, so definitely no excuses now not to catch this one. It's definitely one that I'm going to be tuning in for, especially with Eurovision out of the way on Saturday night. But look, I think at this point it's worthwhile that we throw out our predictions overall for who's going to win the grand final in a couple of weeks' time, and it might, like, I know we've made these predictions at the beginning of the season, but I'd be very interested to know, Damo, if you're going to maybe change your prediction or if you're sort of sticking with your original prediction. Who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, look, my original prediction, I think, was for Western United to be the champions in a
Ooh.
City versus Western United grand final.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, I can't see that happening, although I would like to see two Melbourne teams in a final. At least it would be in Melbourne and I could get to go. So that would be great. But look, at going off recent form and the way they're playing, I think it's really hard to go past Adelaide. I
Ooh.
really think that Adelaide have got everything at the moment, all the tools. They've got many weapons off the bench. Yeah, I mean, going off the last month of football, I think they're going to be incredibly tough to beat.
I think it's going to be really interesting. I think my problem with Adelaide is that being that they do have so many young players in that squad, I'm just not sure if they have enough experience to be able to go all of the way. I could maybe see them making a grand final and sneaking in, but I'm just not sure they're going to be able to take that extra step. And they strike me as a team that they're going to put a lot of emotional energy into the elimination final and possibly into the next game after that. And it's really hard to sort of stay grounded, especially when you get into a grand final and you've possibly played your grand final the week before. So that's my only fear with Adelaide.
And the fact that the last two games that they have lost have been against both Central Coast Mariners and Melbourne Victory. So two other teams in the finals. So that's sort of hanging over them as well, as that, yes, they've won 5 games in a row, but they haven't beat the two teams they're likely going to come up against in that finals run.
For me, I think I don't think City can win it without Berenguer and Aidan O'Neill. I think how they played against Wellington and obviously that performance midweek against Perth obviously just showed the struggles that they've got without two of their most important players. I think Melbourne Victory are the favourites. Got to be the favourites at this point to win the grand final. They've got all of that experience in there. They've got all of the depth as well if they do have any injuries over the next couple of weeks. And I think really it's their grand final to lose. And there's a very good chance it's going to be played in Melbourne with three of the top 3 teams are all from Melbourne. So even if Melbourne Victory doesn't make the final, there's still a very good chance that one of the other Melbourne teams is going to be in the final. So looking forward to a pretty decent shot at a Melbourne grand final come the 28th of May. But all right, let's move on to the Premier League though, before we get into some European football as well. So big weekend in the Premier League, as Damo mentioned at the top. Liverpool dropped points against Spurs. Klopp super sour in the post-match, and subsequently after dropping points. City did roll on though after going out of the Champions League midweek. They got a 5-0 win over Newcastle, a Newcastle team who only last week and the week before I was saying that Newcastle were going to take points off of either Liverpool or City. Didn't happen, but you got to make some bold calls sometimes, and they're not always going to come off. Damon, does the title race have another twist left in it, or do you think that it's going to be very hard now for Liverpool to sort of get back into it, given that City just are so consistent?
Yeah, look, it's going to be incredibly difficult. I don't think City will lose. They have to lose now, not just drop points like they did previously. And not only do they have to lose, because they won 5-0 against Newcastle, they've actually jumped up. They're four goal difference clear now of Liverpool, which was in Liverpool's favour, that if previously that if City would have dropped points, Liverpool had a better goal difference. So yeah, not only the fact that City have to lose, there has to be a 4 goal difference turnaround over those 3 games. I can't see it happening, but stranger things have happened in football, so you can't really write it off yet.
I mentioned before about Newcastle, how they played Liverpool and City over the last 2 weeks. But curiously, Liverpool and City both play Aston Villa and Wolves, with Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa playing City on the final day. How much How much value do you think that there is in the idea that Steven Gerrard is going to win Liverpool the title on the final day?
Look, it's that I think that's the sort of narrative that Liverpool fans are hanging on at the moment. That if Villa pip City on the final day with Gerrard as the manager, that'll be written in folklore, won't it? It's pretty much Liverpool's two favourite sons, Klopp managing a second league title and Gerrard being the one that sort of gifted it to him in the end. So it just, I mean, that's the headline that everyone wants to see really on the final day. Whether we'll get to that or not, I don't know, but it'll be interesting either way to watch.
Funny, City play Wolves, West Ham, and Aston Villa in their final 3 league games, and I see it so that it's so difficult a scenario that Aston Villa are going to be the ones that will take points off of City. If anything, I can think that there's a better chance that Wolves or West Ham are going to be the ones that will, if anyone, take points off of City. So, if anything, I think if City haven't dropped points at either Wolves or West Ham, I can't see it happening at Aston Villa on the last day. Aston Villa have pretty much been on the beach for the last couple of weeks anyway, so maybe they'll be refreshed after being on the beach the last couple of weeks, like Brighton have been. So, but yeah, fair enough. I agree with you, mate. I think we might have seen our last twist in the title race, and I think especially with and I think Jesse made this point midweek. After City were knocked out of the Champions League, it was that now with City out of the Champions League, they are not going to lose their focus. They've only got one trophy left to win. Be very hard to see them dropping points in those final 3 games and not walking away, I think, without the Premier League title. But at the other end of the table, though, Watford were officially relegated this weekend. And whilst Watford are out, there's still another 3 teams that I think are definitely still in a relegation dogfight. Everton, they picked up a good win against Leicester, 2-1 win, which puts them ahead of Burnley on goal difference and ahead of Leeds by just a single point. It's worth noting that Burnley do have slightly better goal difference. Everton are still just a point above Burnley as well, but Burnley do have better goal difference if Burnley do manage to catch them. Mace Caruana asks, do Everton stay up?
Oh, it's so difficult because the relegation battle for me this year is incredible. It's clubs that we wouldn't have expected to be there. Some clubs that we would have expected. Everton, we didn't really expect to be there, but it's almost like a lot of people want Everton to go down to almost learn their lesson that they haven't learnt for the last 10 years of spending and not implementing anything of any merit. I want Leeds to go down. We all know that. I also want Burnley to go down for justice for Sean Dyche, who was pulled the pin on him quite rudely after 10 years.
Justice.
It's just, there's so many different stories to the relegation fight this year. And it's going to be, I mean, Everton have won 2 in a row. They've won 3 of their last 5. No one predicted this. No one predicted them to get the wins that they have recently. Everyone was shitting on Lampard just, 3-4 weeks ago. And now all of a sudden Lampard I was one of them too. And now Lampard's looking like he's been able to turn a corner and he's getting something out of these Everton players. But I think the biggest thing for Everton is, yes, they won away to Leicester, but Goodison Park has been just an absolute really, really rough place to go for clubs back late on this season. The Everton fans just seem desperate to make any team coming to Liverpool a really, really tough time. And we saw that with the Chelsea game and all the antics that went on. They beat Man United at home. They got a draw with Leicester a few weeks ago at home. They beat Newcastle at home. It's becoming a bit of a fortress. And unfortunately for them, they've got Arsenal away on the final day. So you would have thought if that was at Goodison Park on the final day, you'd probably give them a bit of a boost. But it's looking difficult. I think they'll stay up in the end. I think they've got more about them at the moment than both Burnley and Leeds. So Long-winded way to answer the question, but I think they'll just stay up.
It's like Everton do have quite I wouldn't say a favourable run, but they do have probably one of the easier runs out of the three teams. So Everton still play. They play
Well,
Watford
they've also got
next
4
up.
games to go, haven't they? Not 3.
They've got one extra
Yeah.
game. So they've got Watford, then Brentford, and then Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace kind of only playing for like a top half spot, not really much to play for, depending on maybe who you ask. Brentford in a bit of a similar position, and then you've got Watford who are already relegated as well. And I mean, you're kind of never not really sure what you're going to get with a relegated team. They can sometimes turn up and play with a bit of freedom and sort of turn on a performance, or they can just sort of crumble because feel like they've got nothing to play for. So, very interesting, I guess, set of circumstances. And I think when you've got a 3-horse race like this, you don't have to come first. You've only got to not come last. And I think that's what we're likely to see, is that even if these 3 teams lose all of their next 4 games, it's still going to be Leeds that will go down, because they need to win games now to jump ahead of those other teams. And so it's really hard to see Leeds beating Chelsea, Brighton, and Brentford, who all Chelsea haven't been in the best of form lately, but Brighton and Brentford, they look far more coherent teams than Leeds have for the last couple of weeks. So it's really hard to see Leeds sort of getting enough points to be able to stay up. And I think of the 3 teams, Everton is the team that I think I would like to see go down the most, out just for sort of banter reasons. I think a lot of people would sort of like to see Leeds stay up, but for more sort of romantic notions of, they're a big club, almost for the same reasons they want Everton to go down.
Yeah, it's
so,
funny, isn't it?
Yeah, and yet sort of like Burnley have become sort of such a mainstay of the Premier League for the last couple of years that I think a lot of people kind of just feel neutral about them as well. But at least that's how I feel. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if Burnley gets some sort of a result. I think they probably only need 3 points now, maybe that might be enough to see them stay up, because I can't see Leeds winning more than 1 game now, or getting more than 3 points out of those final 3 games, because I think, they might be able to do Brentford or Brighton, but I can't see them doing both. So it's like I said, you just got to not come last out of those 3. You don't have to win.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but in just look at their last 5 games. Burnley and Everton have both won 3 and got a draw as well as a loss. So they're both in far better form than Leeds, who I think have lost 3 and had 1 draw and 1 win. So
I also think that I mentioned before about Watford, but like you look at some of these teams that are playing at the moment, and this goes league wide, it's so hard to make sort of an on paper analysis decision, because like form is going out the window. Some teams just don't care. Some teams are playing the kids. Some teams are just rotating heavily, and you just have no idea what to expect. And like we're going to see some weird results. Like, I mean, arguably you could say that Brighton spanking Manchester United, that was a really weird result, even knowing that Brighton are good and Man United haven't been good this year. That was still a really strange result. So
yeah, and look, Leeds have got 2 of their final 3 games at home. So we've spoken at length about Elland Road being another one of those grounds that is a really intimidating place to go, and Leeds is a really intimidating city to go to when Leeds fans want to make it that way. So, that's going to play a big part in the run-in as well. And, that's a factor we haven't really seen over the last couple of years with COVID, is the ability for teams to stay up by just intimidating opposition in their home ground. I'm still hoping on the pipe dream I had at the start of the season, which was Wednesday wouldn't get promoted from League One. Check that one off. The Sheffield United would get promoted from the Championship in process, and that Leeds would get relegated from the Premier League in process. So we've got a couple of weeks to see if my dream comes true. Mate, and then natural order is restored in Yorkshire.
At least you've acknowledged your biases. I appreciate that. So lean into it.
Always have. I've always said I'm not a big fan of Leeds, but I could acknowledge that they're a huge club, and Elland Road is a ridiculously good stadium to go to.
Yeah, cool. All right. Whip around the results. Obviously mentioned already that Liverpool, they drew with Spurs 1-1. Damo, I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about Son. You were gassing him up in the group chat just beforehand. Come on, tell us how good he is.
I mean, for me, I think he's the most elite finisher in the world at the moment in terms
Ooh.
of both feet. Any half chance he gets is a goal, and that's literally backed up by statistics of he's scored 20 goals, 11 with his left, 9 with his right, and he's had an XG of like 11.3 or something crazy. So, he literally scores goals from half chances on either foot. So, it's pretty incredible what he can do, and he's been doing this for a few years now. He outscores his XG quite significantly, and comparatively to Salah, who's scored 22 goals with an XG of 35. It's a big difference, and I love Son, and I don't think there's many people that don't like him, and just the way he plays the game and the way he enjoys the game.
I've heard rumours, Damo, that in Yorkshire they're calling Son the Korean Billy Sharp. Is that true?
He just scores goals.
As we mentioned before already, City, they beat Newcastle 5-0. Big result for them, and a surprisingly poor one for Newcastle after their good form of late. Leicester, they lost 2-1 to Everton. Obviously, another good result for Everton. Arsenal, they beat Leeds 2-1. Chelsea threw away a 2-goal lead at home to Wolves in front of their new owners, something we haven't talked about yet on the pod, through error rather than design. Obviously, Chelsea look like they're going to have new American owners, which is just going to be great because it's another opportunity to throw out more Ted Lasso memes and style commentary, which I know we're all looking forward to.
And some more ridiculous group chat accent voice messages.
We need to start posting those, don't we? As I mentioned before, Brighton, they absolutely trounced Man United 4-0. And I'll come back to this result slightly later because it's quite important for a bit of an unexpected reason. Burnley, they lost 3-1 to Aston Villa. Jesse Farmer notes Burnley's Mike Jackson is going to have to take a long, hard look at the man in the mirror to get the club out of this one. Shimona. Crystal Palace, they beat Watford 1-0, which officially relegated Watford. And Brentford, they beat Southampton 3-0. And they were Brentford fans singing that Ralph Hasenhüttl was going to get sacked in the morning, which just another one of those weird results where Southampton are prone to, where you think they're doing well, but they end up sort of throwing it away and being garbage. The result I didn't mention was West Ham beating Norwich 4-0. Great result for West Ham after being eliminated from Europa League midweek. And also very important in the race for sixth spot, which is not really one that I'd given much thought to in the last couple of weeks because West Ham pretty much will focus on Europa League. But with Brighton's big win over Manchester United, it's given it means that there's now there was an 8-goal turnaround in their respective goal differences. So it means that with getting into a little bit of table maths now, West Ham play.
West Ham have got an extra game to play than Manchester United, and a goal difference of their goal difference is +10 better. So it's sitting with West Ham at the moment. If they can win their catch-up game, then it's in their hands to finish sixth.
Yeah, so West Ham play City next, which obviously is going to be very difficult. And then, hang on, where is it? They play City, and then they play Brighton on the final day. And a win at Brighton, assuming that they lose against City, that could be enough if Palace end up beating Man United. And you know what? Stranger things have happened in the last couple of weeks than Palace beating Manchester United.
Well, I don't think Palace will have to beat Manchester United, will they? Oh yeah, they will if they lose to City. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so there's still a 3-point gap. So it needs to. That's the only way it can play out, and they'll end up on level on points. And assuming West Ham don't lose 10-0 against City again, stranger things have happened. But even if it stays the way it is, and West Ham finish 7th and Man United 6th, West Ham still play European football next year in the Conference League. So not all bad for West Ham, I guess. But look, let's move on to European football. So look, the big one this week was King Carlo. His team, Real Madrid, showed us that they can never be written off as they scored 2 goals, one in the 89th minute and another one in injury time to take it to extra time. It was 4-4 on aggregate before Karim Benzema. He then scored from the penalty spot just 5 minutes into injury time to give Real Madrid a 5-4 aggregate lead, which they held on to throughout extra time, I should say. Mate, this was just vintage Pep, wasn't it? Vintage Pep, and we've seen this, I guess, at Bayern. We've seen it do it multiple times now at City, and I just never get sick of it. I'm not sure if you caught it, that footage of Pep. I think it might have been when there was 30 seconds left of the game or something like that. Or maybe it was in between full time and extra time when he said he's just sitting there and you can see he just can't believe his luck. And, excuse me, he just, you see him mouth, "son of a bitch," to himself. And you can just tell he's sort of thinking, why does this keep happening? Because I mean, you look objectively at it, and sort of City absolutely sort of played Real Madrid off the pitch over the 2 legs, and probably were the better team and deserved to go through. But Real Madrid, you just can't write them off over the last 5 years, and they just keep coming back. Mate, how much did you like this one?
I watched the end of this game live, and all I can think about is the Yaya Toure African curse that's on Pep. He'll never win the Champions League because of Yaya Toure's manager put a curse on him.
It's so good, and I saw that even Manchester City were on the socials this week posting. It was like a memory of Yaya Toure's birthday. Like they're trying to exercise the curse through.
They're finally giving him his cake.
Yeah, it's like, nah, guys, not enough. Need to do more.
What was the story about the Socceroos and the comedian that went over to Mozambique and did the
John Safran?
Yeah, did the blood ritual. Maybe they need to do something like that.
I could totally see John Safran getting involved with like the Emiratis and Manchester City, right? Because it just seems like the kind of thing he'd go, yeah, all right, I'll do that. Just for shits. Oh, wow. That meant that Real Madrid, they go through to the Champions League final. Damo, I think you pointed out this week in one, I think it was on the More Than a Game Twitter account, the fact that Real Madrid haven't lost a European final for a long time. I can't remember the exact figure.
40 odd years or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean already. So in the other semi, Villarreal, they lost to Liverpool, which means that Liverpool will be going through to the final. But it was only 3-4 years ago that we had Real Madrid beating Liverpool in the final. So there might be some nerves in Liverpool, thinking, oh geez, just saw Real Madrid shithouse their way past Manchester City, who look like they're on track to beat. Look like they're on track to beat Liverpool in the Premier League race, and now they've got the team that's just beat them a few years ago in the Champions League final. They're going to be going up against them. So yeah, I suspect there could be a few nerves there in the Liverpool camp. And what's your pick for the Champions League final? It's still, I think, a good 3 weeks away just yet, so still plenty of water to go under the bridge. But what's your feel?
Well, we've seen Real Madrid can play for 5 minutes, 10 minutes a game and get a result. That's what they've done over their last 3 two-legged ties, is they've probably played in total half an hour, 40 minutes of good football over 6 games, and they've managed to sneak their way through to a Champions League final. So you can never write them off, and Benzema's in the form of his life. So it's going to be a pretty incredible match to watch. I think Liverpool would fancy themselves, and Klopp's got a pretty good record in cup finals with Liverpool. So, with losing the league, likely losing the league, by that point they'll know they could still get a treble this season. Very similar to the treble of 2000, where they got a UEFA Cup, a League Cup, and an FA Cup without the league. So
The budget treble.
An often forgotten treble when you don't include the league title.
Some would say it's not a real treble because if you don't win the league, then it's not a treble, it's not a double, it's not nothing. But yeah, it remains to be very interesting, I guess, that Champions League final that's going to be played in Paris after it was moved from Russia due to the war. So not sure how much of a role that's going to play. Obviously, it's a little bit cheaper for both sets of fans to travel to. I guess that's one minor positive, I guess, to take out of it. All right, just before we wrap up, though, in the Europa League, as I mentioned at the top, Frankfurt beat West Ham in the processed pork derby. Match didn't play out particularly well for West Ham fans. I made the point that I think that the West Ham players were probably a little bit overwhelmed by the atmosphere in the Frankfurt Stadium. Heaps of pyro, heaps of noise, just a very different atmosphere to what they're used to, even in sort of the rowdiest of grounds in England. But it was massive, and the field was just absolutely covered in smoke from all the flares and stuff like that in the lead up and to kick off, and even throughout the match. I think every time they cut to the crowd, there was at least 2 or 3 flares going off. So it would have been a pretty intense atmosphere for them. Game didn't start very well. They conceded early on, then had a player sent off in Aaron Creswell after he brought down one of the Frankfurt attackers. And then, basically the Frankfurt goal killed off the game and ultimately the tie as well. West Ham, even once they got back into the game, even after Frankfurt's goal, I don't think West Ham really created very much. Best chance was probably from a set piece or from a corner. Funnily enough, though, David Moyes got it sent off as well for absolutely walloping a ball at a ball boy, which didn't seem to win him many fans either. In the other game, though, Rangers from Scotland, they beat RB Leipzig 3-1 at Ibrox. Rangers showing that there's more to Scottish football than just Ange Postecoglou, which means that Rangers will go to their first European final since 2008. Finals just next week, which I think is actually going to be a really interesting game. Both teams are really good going forward, defensively solid though, so should be a cracking one. And I guess if there's one, big takeaway for me this season was that the Europa League's a lot of fun and there's a lot of really great teams out there. And you're probably going to spot a player that may not necessarily be at a big club yet, but give it 12 months and they're probably going to be at a big club. So. Yeah.
Should be a good game. 2 sets of incredible fans. We saw, like you were talking about, the Eintracht Frankfurt fans. It's an intimidating atmosphere. Rangers fans create an intimidating atmosphere. I guess it just depends what's the allocation that both clubs get and what's the corporate allocation in terms of what are the fans going to be like at a Europa League final. I feel like it'd be about 70 to 80% corporate allocation, and then the fans get the rest. Usually how UEFA do it, isn't it?
Exactly right. And look, if there's one good thing about the city that they've selected, it's really a city that is synonymous with the Europa League. Guess where it's going to be?
Oh, somewhere in Azerbaijan.
No, I was being serious when I said it has a really strong link with the Europa League. It's in Sevilla.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be in Baku, because you know how everyone talks about how they have to fly over to Baku for the Europa League.
Yep. Oh no, fair enough. All right, but that wraps things up for this week. Thanks for tuning in for the pod. Obviously, a big couple of weeks coming up with A-League finals. You got Europa League, Champions League, and obviously we're getting very close to having a league winner as well. Next Saturday night, we're also going to have the FA Cup final as well, so we'll be able to talk about that next week too. And of course, maybe might even have a little bit of Eurovision too, Eurovision chat. So see if we can't shoehorn that in. But until next week, enjoy the football.